Now, I usually start every show by saying, let's welcome our special guest. But for me personally, those words have never been more true than tonight. And I'll explain why after I introduce him. You may know him as one half of the Fabulous Ones. You may know him as Skinner. You may know him as the author of this brand new book, The Keirn Chronicles, Volume 1. We have Steve Keirn on the line. Steve, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be on.
Awesome. Well, Steve, anyone who watches my show knows this. And if it doesn't, I'm going to give them a little background. In 1992, February, I started my training at Iron Mike Sharp's wrestling school. Fast forward 4 short months, I'm in the ring, 18 years old, scared out of my mind, greener than grass. And I got to wrestle Skinner, Steve Keirn, in Portland, Maine, July 28th, 1992. Packed arena, and I didn't know what to do. And I didn't see you for 29 years after this match. So about 2 years ago, I had the honor of coming up to you. And I was so nervous too. I'm sure you remember. I was like, Mr. Keirn, do you have a minute to talk to me? And I told you, I said, I was a wrestler from back in the day. I had my first match with you. And you were so good to me in that match. And you knew I was young. You knew I was green. And the lessons I learned from that match, I took with me in the hundreds and hundreds of matches I had over the next 15 years when I was the ring general. I took the lessons through my life that you taught me that night in the ring, Steve. And the name Steve Keirn is held in the highest regard in the Mike Moraldo house. And I just want to, again, say thank you. You've made a difference in my life personally, Steve.
Well, that's really humbling. I mean, I appreciate that. That's kind of like, what do you say to that? I mean, here's the thing, Mike. You know what? This business is not what it's portrayed on television. You know that. And the personalities in those dressing rooms are totally different a lot of times in their demeanor in front of an audience. And the real deal, and I taught so many people in this industry because I wanted to share my knowledge and my experience, because that's really how you learn. But the real thing is getting along in the dressing room and being a good person. You know as well as I know that if you're not a good person, you're a target. I mean, and I was never a shooter. I got into the wrestling business. I was pretty, and I thought I was going to stay pretty. So I wanted to get in because it was a work. Breaking in Florida wasn't that, the idea Eddie Graham had. He beat you to death for 6 months just to see if you'd protect the business. But I was always taught, and I always shared that with people that I taught, be nice to each other. I mean, maybe you don't like Mike. Maybe you don't like the way he looks. Maybe you don't like something he said in the dressing room. But do you become a jerk because of that? Because when you do, and you go out to the ring and you don't share, and you don't try to make a story out of it, you try to be selfish and stuff like that. He might have friends that see that in you. The next time you work, you don't know you're working with one of Mike's friends, and they the most misused phrase in pro wrestling is, right?
What's that?
I'm sorry.
Oops.
It was one of those things that's all you could say when something stiff happened or something happened that really hurt somebody. It's like, hey man, I'm sorry. But that's all somebody has to say to get off the hook. And like I'm saying, if you don't be nice to everybody and you're not a humble person, you won't last. We were a sea of sharks, man. And when minnows got in, you just chewed them up and got them out of there. And a lot of times guys came with attitudes thinking that, well, I need to be cocky and arrogant because that's what they're going to like. And as well as I do, to me, Bobby Eaton was the best. Yeah. Bobby Eaton was the kindest, most humble. He was so underrated because he was so nice, so kind, so humble. He wasn't a great promo guy, but he was a true worker that could go out there and make, a broomstick look good. And he never was greedy about what he was doing, but he still could get his stuff in and get over. And so, there's very few Bobby Eatons in my life, but I mean, I'm blessed to have quite a few still alive that, we're pretty close and very humbling friends. We just ate lunch together here in Tampa. We get together. There's so many old timers here. We get together once a month and just go somewhere and eat lunch, and nobody bothers us because nobody recognizes us. We all look goofy now. And half of the guys have canes, and I'm already starting to get embarrassed that I don't have a cane. I'm thinking about just buying one because I feel like I'm not selling enough right now. When we get together, they're going like, how come you don't have a back problem? And I go, no back drops, none. I don't take back drops.
Who's in your crew? What guys are there?
Okay, well, like Al Perez. I don't know if you remember Al. He was in running Texas quite a while. He's a local guy here from Tampa. Then we had Steve Madison that he works Japan quite a bit. Matter of fact, he brought me this shirt back. That brought back memories to me. The old, I think it was Baba's group that passed these out. Joe Gomez, Jody Malenko. I mean, there's Jerry Briscoe, The Big Show, Knobs. I mean, it's Shannon Moore to Danny Spivey. I mean, the list just goes on. And Dennis Knight, he was Midian, and later on, some other goofy gimmick he was. I never thought he was going to make it. But anyway, I taught him in 91 with Mike Awesome here in Tampa. So there's just so many of us that I make it a point to call up everybody or text everybody. I said, okay, we're going to eat lunch over here. If you can make it, come on. And a lot of guys come because they just like to reminisce. But, the worst part about it, Mike, is I'm kind of a target, and I'm the one that invites them because I ribbed them. And some of the guys I ribbed like to tell the stories. Hey, tell the story about how you ribbed Brian Blair. Well, ribs aren't something you're supposed to brag about. You're supposed to say, I didn't do that. I mean, but now he's sitting right beside me and he's thinking, yeah, come to think of it, you did pull a lot of ribs on me and you don't believe in there's heat. I go, don't bring up the ribs no more. So anyway, but there's a lot of guys. I mean, Hulkster lives here. Bushwhacker Luke lives here. Flair lives here. He's never been to one of our luncheons, but he's invited all the time, whatever, if he wants to. So there's no remorse between anybody or heat or bad feelings. I mean, there's no hidden things in the closet.
Right.
I mean, Rick always brings up he hated my forearm when we worked because I was real stiff with that. But okay, well, I hated that stupid repetition bump into the corner and up over the top and then press slamming you up the other side. I go, Stevie Wonder knows that spot's coming. So anyway,